your local game shop is holding back Flesh and Blood. Local game shop are not doing enough to attract new players. In fact, I think they're actively, even if not knowingly, sabotaging the new player acquisition when it comes to Flesh and Blood. And there's a couple of reasons why I think that is happening. First of all, events are not being advertised. So when you set up an event as a shop, you enter your armory into Gem, right? And then when a player goes to fabtcg.com event finder, they look for an event. They find events close to them or like a special location where they want to go to and play, and for a date that they're looking for. Now, what I found is that when you go to Reddit, and I'm on Reddit way too much, I'll freely admit that, then a lot of people ask, oh, where are the shops and events in my area? And they ask, where can I play Flesh and Blood? Every time my answer is, go to the event finder, you'll find it there. But the thing is, you can't actually find it because the events are not there. What I see often happening is that somebody gives a link and says, here is our local region Discord. Join us there, and we will tell you about everything that's happening, right? Which is good. Great community, awesome. But if you're an LGS, your event should be up on the event finder at least a few days, if not weeks, ahead of time on the event finder. My LGS don't even register event. We have to do the organizing between ourselves and finding new players. That's fair, right? And that can happen, right? If you sometimes, the community organizes it themselves, but I asked the community in 3 different social networks, when are your events going up on the event finder? And a good half said that it's going up on the day of the event. I'm sorry, but if you want new players that discovering the game for the first time to come to your event, putting it live on the day of the event, probably just a few hours before, that's not good enough. People are not going to find your event. Now, granted, not everybody going to search for events like that, but you have to make your events to discover as easily as possible. And I've set up events in Event Finder, right? You can set up templates. You can copy an earlier event. It's really easy and fast to do, and you can set up like 4 or 5 events in like 20 minutes, right? And you do it once a month, once every 2 months, easy peasy, fast done. And I asked on the social platforms, and half of all the answers that I got was like, we put it up on the day of the event. It's like, if you want discoverability, I'm sorry, it's not good enough. I don't know what else to say. And that's really my big gripe. It's like, make it easy for people to find. That's really everything that you need to do to get more players in. I just wish more shops would recognize that they need to put it up. Now, does this solve every single problem that we have with player attrition and getting new players into the game? No, certainly not. But I think it's such a small thing to do and an easy thing to do that I don't understand why people are not doing it. Like, I don't understand it. So that is point number 1. Or before we go on, actually, do you agree with this? Do you think this is a problem? Should they do it more or not? Or whose responsibility is it? Is it actually going to increase the numbers or not? Most of the existing Fab players in the area know where the events are and when. The biggest thing is getting new players in. Exactly. That's exactly the point. Even with a store champion, it's hard to do this. We had success because me and my husband both play as owners. I think that really helps. If the store owner is invested in the game, that really helps. A lot of LGS are not invested. They live off Magic or Pokemon. They have a loyal player base around those games, and then why introduce other games? It just kind of messes with the whole thing. You need more space. You need to get things coordinated. And I get why a lot of places don't engage with Flesh and Blood more. But I also see communities say, oh, why don't we have more players? It's like, this is one of the problems, right? Prices on unfriendly people, hard for new players. I have never, I have to say, encountered a community around Flesh and Blood that is unfriendly. I've never seen it. Does it happen? Probably. But I've played in quite a few LGS around the globe, and I've never seen an unwelcoming bunch. Now, you could argue that this is not the LGS's fault or not the LGS's responsibility to do, which is fair. But I think it's a bit of both, right? It's a bit of the LSS, and it is also the LGS or the community's responsibility. Now, that kind of leads me into the second point here that I think is a problem as well. Wow, look at all these rune chants. The second point is every time you get an armory kit, you get playmats, you get promos to give out, and you get posters to promote your armory events. I think you get 1 or 2 posters free of charge. Every LGS gets this free of charge. No cost to them. You get 2 playmats. Now I only have 1. Sorry, I might be wrong there, right? But you get playmat. So the point that I'm trying to make is you get the posters. I have been to a lot of LGSs around the globe. I have never seen that poster being used, right? So let's say somebody doesn't even know about Flesh and Blood. Somebody doesn't even know TCGs, but they would totally be up for it. Why don't you put the poster that you get free of charge on the wall, in the window, and you just put something on it that says, Flesh and Blood, Wednesday every week, we have an armory. You've seen them a lot. Okay, maybe this is just anecdotal experience, but I have never seen them. It's also hard to sell a game with a brand new IP. Yes, that is very hard, right? But that's why I'm not focusing on that. There's not much you can do about that. What I want to focus on here is things that we can do to make the situation better. And I think one of those things is to put the poster in the window or on the wall. It's free. We have 3 full banner for Fab. Then you're the exception, and I commend you for it. Again, maybe this is just anecdotal. I have never seen them used, and I was like, put them up. It's free. It's like, why wouldn't you do it? So I really don't understand that. All right, so that was point number 2. You're getting a banner? That's awesome. Again, what I want to make sure is like you understand these are not going to solve all the problems. But I think they're a big reason of why we're struggling to get new players in the door. And we are struggling, I think, as a community to build our player base. We are maintaining the player base, but we're losing in some areas, or we're building in other ones. I might be wrong, I don't have the data, but I don't think we're experiencing large growth. If we have growth, it's pretty slow. It's pretty low to the ground. It's not a lot. And we need to do something to attract new players because you're going to have attrition. People move away. People have lives. They get busy. They can't play. Right? It happens. You need to get new players in the door as well. We need damn casual events. We need casual events. You're absolutely right. It's a multitude of things that can potentially solve the problem. The next thing that I want to get into is point number 3. And I think it was mentioned earlier on as well. I briefly touched on it. A lot of the communication and coordination on the community is happening in siloed communities. Where's the PvE? That's a good question as well. But I don't think PvE is going to solve the problem. Where do people talk to each other about Flesh and Blood? It's on the Flesh and Blood Discord. And that actually extends to where events are announced as well, right? So I have one LGS close to me. Where do they announce their armory? When it's happening? What is happening? They announce it on their Flesh and Blood specific Facebook group. Not in their store Facebook group, which would already be siloed. In their Flesh and Blood group. If you do not follow that group, you do not know when the event is happening. You don't know what format. Nothing. A lot other shops that I see, they post it in their Discord. Only the people in their Discord will see it. And it goes even deeper. I know a shop that posts what Flesh and Blood event is happening only in the section on their Discord that is dedicated to Flesh and Blood. So they're not even exposing other players from other TCGs that are coming to their shop to Flesh and Blood, right? And if you silo the information this much, then don't be surprised if people are not going to show up, because how are people supposed to find out that events are happening? Right? Like, how are they supposed to know? This goes back to the first and the second point that I mentioned. Make it easy to find for people. Put your events on the event finder. Put the posters into the window or on the wall. Make it easy to find. If you have a Facebook group, if you have a Discord, fine, use that. But do not use that as the main way to inform the players what is going to happen and when. Because only the people that already play Flesh and Blood are going to find that information. Let's be honest here. People are lazy. Don't make people work to find Flesh and Blood. The more you make people jump through hoops, the less they're going to show up. I mean, I work in software development, right? And it's a well-known fact. If you make people click one more time to get where they need to go, you lose so many people on that journey. Like every click is a lost person, is a lost player that could have potentially been, a new world champion. And this is easy as well, right? Instead of solve this problem by not posting it on your Flesh and Blood this channel, post it on the generic channels, post it on where people can find it, put it on Instagram, put it on Twitter, put it on wherever, like whatever social platforms you use. I even made a post for an LGS to use that they could use every single week because I was engaged with the community. I wanted it to grow. It's like all they had to do was take this post, put it on the Instagram once a week. They can schedule it. It's completely hands off. They didn't even do that, right? Also, many consumers are too deep to play the game. No, they're not. But again, it's like you gotta attract. If you want the game to succeed, right? And that of course is a big caveat, right? I think there's places out there who don't care. Then fair enough, right? You don't have to do anything. You're not going to put into any effort, and that's great. But there's places that wanna make Flesh and Blood a thing because they bring players to the shop that consume their products. They buy packs, they buy drinks, they buy food. And let's be honest here, if you're an LGS that runs events, where you make your money is with selling soft drinks and food. That's where you make your money, right? If somebody sits down for 3 hours to play games, that's not how you make your money. The margin is much higher on food and drink. My next point is, and I'm not sure about this one, so you can argue this one. The first few I'm pretty sure about. The organizers of armories are very worried about not catering to their existing player base. The events that they set up cater to the existing player base. This means that you see a lot of armories just playing classic constructed, classic constructed, classic constructed. Now you can argue that Blitz or Commoner are not as new player friendly as it's made out to be, and I completely think that is right, or there's a lot of truth to that. But if you have a format where every player needs 80 cards or 60 cards at least, 3 versions of the expensive cards, you're gonna gatekeep new players. LSS already, I think, recognized that, and with the introduction of the armory decks, that is going to help a lot. I've seen a lot of new players come into our LGSs with the armory decks. It is pulling new players in. So that is great, and I think that's one way to redeem that or fix it. But you also need to think about what events you run as an LGS. And I saw some earlier in chat here saying we run other events on the weekend. That's awesome. Run sealed, run draft. Let people get to their cards and help them build their collection and not just throw them in the deep end with CC, with Classic Constructed. The hard part is also money seems also tight around. People less likely to jump in on something new. Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, money is a problem. What I'm talking about is like, this is not going to solve all the problems. It's not. But when you think about what can you do that are easy, quick fixes, that's what I'm trying to do here. It's like, what can you do? Mostly with things that you already do today as an LGS to solve some of the problem. That's my focus here. I think that kind of sums it up where I wanted to go with all of this, right? It's like, you can't solve people being invested in their games, sunk cost fallacy and all that. It's going to be very hard for somebody after playing Magic the Gathering for 20 years to hop into the game. Or somebody that, doesn't have a lot of money, that's going to be challenging as well. It's just like, that just kind of excludes some player bases already. But there's things you can do for people that would be interested, that are in the market for new TCG, that do have everything else, and they just don't know when it's happening and that it's happening. Attendance is lower on Saturdays, but I find having the majors and minors events are very important to not intimidate newer players. I think you're completely correct, Autumn Doll. I think that's completely correct. And that's just the point that I wanted to make. My point is make the hurdle to entry to the lowest level of play, which is armories, as low as possible, as low as you can. And I do believe, truly, that will help attract new players. And we need to attract new players. Because if you just rely on your existing player base, you will have attrition. You will lose players, and you'll go from 8 people turning to the armory to 6 to 4. And when you're around 3 and 4, people are going to be worried that it doesn't fire when you turn up. So they're not going to turn up either, because why would you drive for an hour for an event that you don't know if it's going to fire or not? Just like yours, exactly, Burstfam. Like, it's like people leave the game, people go out the door. It happens, and you need to do something to counteract that. And I think the things that are listed, there are things we can do quickly. And the reason why I started looking into this is because I was shocked how many LGS actually don't advertise their events. Advertise your freaking events. It's pretty easy to do. Or hire somebody to do it. Or get your grandma to do it. Just make it easy to find. I beg of you. Make your events easy to find. Grandma plays Kano? Oh yeah, I'm not sure we want grandma in that case. I don't know if we want grandma in that case.